Hello, hello. We are back from the Philly Card Show, and we are doing the recap, folks. Stick around. What's going on, sports card friends? I hope that everybody had an amazing weekend. I just got back from the Philly Card Show yesterday. I was only there really for the one day on Saturday, and it was slamming. You know who I also heard was there, and I saw a picture of him? Michael Rubin, head of Fanatics local to that Philly Card Show. And actually, a viewer had reached out to me. I shared it on my Instagram story, and a viewer had reached out to me that's local to that show and actually said, hey, Michael Rubin is a guy that's been buying cards at that show going back 5-10 years, and before he was really involved in the collectible space, before he bought Topps. So I thought that was kind of interesting because I've always kind of viewed Michael Rubin as more on the apparel side, kind of the business that Fanatics was already doing. Didn't necessarily realize that he was a card guy. You know, I understand he's probably getting up to speed on some of the current stuff, but it was kind of cool to hear, though, that he had been buying cards previously. It wasn't just like a brand new thing to him. And while card shows can be an amazing place to buy, sell, trade cards, another great alternative, video sponsor COMC.com, your home for buying, selling, flipping all the hottest trading cards. Their consignment marketplace, now over 30 million cards, from baseball superstars like Aaron Judge to Marvel favorites like Spider-Man. COMC has something for every type of collector. Make sure to visit COMC.com today to build out your collection with your favorite cards. It is the Disneyland for card collectors, as I always say. Check them out. All right, let's start with the people that I actually got to meet up with. So first off, I made kind of my intro video to this, the part one. I did stay with Flipping Steve. Definitely check out his YouTube channel if you haven't already. The great thing about Steve, just really down to earth, and he puts out videos on different things he's buying, selling, why he's doing it, trading, and kind of his journey through the sports card space. And he's also running a giveaway for the National coming up. God bless him.
They may have the appearance of riches, but beneath the clothes, we find a man.
And so if you want to be involved in that and potentially win a trip to the National, and it's not just like a little trip to the National, like, you know, he sets you up with a hotel for a couple of nights. It is loaded. He has really hooked people up over the last couple of years. So make sure you're paying attention to Flipping Steve's content. I was staying with him, so obviously I saw him. Awesome dude. Looking forward to being at another show with him. Neo Cards and Comics, hung out with him quite a bit too. We met up. We were kind of planning on it. It was a little bit last second for Rob to come in. He drove in from Ohio, but it was really good seeing him and just kind of catching up. We talk on live streams and we message here and there, but to actually be in person is kind of cool. So good to see Rob as always. I'll be seeing him again, definitely at the National, and maybe beforehand we will certainly see. Ken, Sports Card Lessons Podcast, ran into him as he was trolling around looking for deals. Very good podcast, Sports Card Lessons, also on YouTube, so make sure you check him out. I didn't get a chance to meet up with Rob, Sports Card Therapist. Really wanted to catch up with him, but it was a total zoo on Saturday. However, I have messaged with him. We're setting up a call to then do a podcast together, so we will be doing something together over the next couple of weeks. Viewer Michael Golden, awesome guy, one of my good hobby friends. He made the trip as well. He's got family in the area and he came and hung out. It's always good because he likes a variety of different cards and we kind of talked about different strategies, things going on. Just always cool hanging out with Michael Golden. Sports Card Investigator Andy, he was there with his trio. He actually had a camera crew, which I thought was really kind of funny because I didn't think that Andy was going to show up there with the whole crew, but I think he got some footage. He did an interview with us, kind of just asking us about the show with the mic and everything. So I'm looking for, I wish Andy would do more videos. So I'm looking forward to see that come out, but also just more videos in general because I like his stuff. It was great meeting Andy in person. Oz and Tony from Cousins Collectibles Podcast. They're on YouTube as well, like Apple, Spotify, and all the podcast things. Check them out on YouTube. They're good. Again, they go through kind of their hobby journey, talk about a lot of different hobby topics. Just a really good podcast. They are a part of the Wolf Pack. I think it was started by Rob, Sports Card Therapist. Maybe it was started by a few people, but good guys, good dudes overall. And Oz collects Stranger Things cards. He's one of the few that collects Stranger Things cards with me right now, so he's awesome in my book. Ryan from Gem Rate was there. Ryan does all that awesome data that goes up on IG that shows how much the grading companies are grading. So, you know, PSA and SGC, CSG, CGC, and Beckett. He puts that out on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, and valuable information that I talk about. Neo talks about it on his channel, and others do as well, just to give an idea of what's going on in the grading landscape as far as who's doing what. It's funny, before this sort of data was accumulated, whether it be from data tools or from GemRate, a lot of people just in the dark. It's incredible how, things have come along here over the last few years. So it was really good hanging out with Ryan at GemRate, and hope to see him again soon. Mike O at Trade Night, got to talk with Mike just for a few minutes. I've seen him at the last couple of nationals, but he was there. I believe that's like a 90-minute show for him, the Philly show, 90 minutes from where he lives. So he was there. So good to catch up with Mike. Trade Night was interesting. Steve actually dropped off all of his cards, like laid everything out, and then he just left. So literally people coming up like, hey, what do you want on this or that? I'm like, oh, actually, those aren't my cards. And then I had to call him like, Steve, you got to come back. So
this is the time when Flippin' Steve dumps all of his cards down at Trade Night and then walks away. So maybe they might just get sold for cheap.
So Trade Night was fun. My only gripe with Trade Night, not enough chairs. We walked in there and there was tables everywhere. There's, I don't know, a couple hundred people or something, and there was like 25 chairs, it felt like. So it was just everyone scrambling around to get chairs. But they made up for it by giving away pizza and waters, and they also had giveaways. I think they had $2,500. Santiago Sports had it set up, $2,500 worth of giveaways. So, that part made up for it. I was able to get a chair, and then I ended up giving it to somebody else. I did bring some of my Stranger Things to Trade Night just to see reactions from people, and I thought that this was really funny. So, I don't know, maybe like a 16-year-old walks up, and he's like, how much do you want for all the Stranger Things cards? And I'm like, oh, wow, I wasn't even really prepared. Again, I probably should have been a little bit more prepared for what I wanted for them. And so I quickly kind of added up, and I tell him, he's like, okay, what about individually? So I tell him, and then he's like, all right, let me think about it, because I've got some myself. And I was like, oh, I'm actually a buyer as well. Can I see what you have? Do you have any kind of the color parallel auto type stuff? And so he goes and he grabs his stuff and he brings it to me. And he had kind of the more the auxiliary characters, not the main characters. And so I passed on them. But I thought it was really funny though how he came up. I don't think he had any intention of buying the cards. He just wanted to know where I had them priced to maybe try to figure out how to price his own stuff. So I think that's a lesson to the young people are a lot more advanced than I ever was as a kid. They were playing me. It was really kind of funny. And to play off of that, I met with a dealer, good dealer, father-son team, sports cards and stuff. I'll put their business card kind of up here. They had a table kind of in that back corner. Steve actually got a really nice Magic Johnson exquisite card from them. I believe he shared it in his video. But he actually had some good feedback. So it's a father-son team. But one thing he said is there's a lot of young people that don't necessarily understand that you have to leave a little bit of room off the comp for the dealer, so, and I know that a lot of people are like, hey, I'm not, and I've actually been hard on dealers too, like, hey, you've got to get your pricing right or you're not going to sell anything. The card museums you're setting up. But I felt like he had a good point. If someone, comes up and if they're showing maybe a couple of comps and that's exactly what they want to get for their card, the understanding that, hey, you have to leave a little bit of meat on the bone so that the dealer can make a little bit if you're trying to move it. So if it's a $150 card, that's what the comp is, then the dealer's not going to give you $150. And I get that was his feedback, is just kind of, young people have to understand it from both ways, like from both sides of it, which was very interesting to me because, man, have the tables turned from when I was a kid. When I was a kid, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have any sort of comps, you didn't have anything to go off of. So if you walk into a card store, there's a card you like and it's sitting there at $5 and the dealer says, no, it's worth $5. That's what I want for it. There's not really much you can do. You don't have any sort of recourse to be able to say like, oh, actually, one just sold for $3 or whatever. Just totally different times. But I think that that's healthy, especially for young people that are buying kind of those highly populated cards that trade a lot. So, like if it's a Zion PSA 10 of whatever, let's say, and it's a $50, $60 card all day, it's good to be able to quickly access that as opposed to, the dealer might have it listed at 100 and you might be thinking like, oh, well, what dealer would list it at 100 or 150 or maybe not have a price on it. And then the 15, 16-year-old goes up and is like, hey, how much do you want for that? And they say, 150. And they're like, okay, not knowing, not having any of that information, that's probably what it used to be like. But again, times have changed to where I think those data tools can be very helpful to make sure that you don't get smoked on some of that stuff that is more commonly traded, bought, and sold, so to speak. So anyway, I thought that was very interesting feedback. Good stuff from sports cards and stuff, and just nice guys, father-son team, and just working together. I've got 4 kids myself, so I think that's always cool when I see kind of those father-son teams out there. Another guy that I met that I felt like could could really add value, Adam at golds_cards on Instagram. This guy is a CPA, but he's found kind of his niche in his business. So he does regular taxes for folks, but then also has found a niche because he's a huge card collector. Actually has some really wicked Juan Soto cards, by the way. But he has found a niche helping sports card collectors or dealers or investors, making sure that they've got all their ducks in a row when tax time comes. Because that's really become a thing now. You know, it's like we're buying, selling, trading. You need to have records. You need to make sure that you're doing it properly. He's got kind of a nice way of doing it. He's got a spreadsheet all built out. He's got it, and it's geared towards card people. So if you run a card business and you're kind of like, man, I need to do this properly. I need to make sure I'm documenting everything. This guy would be a great contact. And so I met him at the show. I'll put his IG up on the screen. Just connect with him there, and he should be able to help you out if you happen to need it. All right, so final reactions from the Philly show. Great show. I thought it was put on well. The one thing, and I know Steven mentioned this in his video, the will call line was really long to get in on Saturday. It was just really busy on Saturday. So that was one thing that was a little bit of a downer. I don't know if they could do it any different, hiring more people or whatever to get people in the door faster. Not really sure how they could have done better, but it was a little bit of an issue just getting in the door on Saturday. This is definitely a heavy baseball card show. So vintage baseball, heavy at this Philly card show. But one thing that I really liked is because you did have a lot of vintage baseball, there's competition there. So there was people that had prices that were, you know, pretty high, but then you also had certain dealers that really had stuff that I thought was priced really fairly. Huge day for Flippin' Steve at the show. He did get a 51 Bowman Willie Mays rookie card, unbelievable card. And he spent maybe almost 3 hours talking to me about this. We were going back and forth. I didn't have budget for this particular show. I'm in save mode and paying off other things mode, family bills mode right now. So I was vicariously living through Steve, but he was able to get a great card, SGC 1.5, 51 Bowman, Willie Mays rookie. And he had been looking at a lot of different comps. He looked at every single one that they had out at the show and just got a really good deal on it, but also just fair based on kind of what we had seen, you know, from online comps to what people were selling it for there. And I just thought that was really cool. So congrats to Steve for picking up just a monster card in the hobby. It definitely felt like there was a lot of excitement around modern baseball prospecting type cards too, you know, so it was a lot of vintage, but then, you know, I also saw a table that had like basically 2 tables full of flawless baseball, you know, modern, ultra modern type stuff, but then also just the baseball prospects were definitely in demand, you know, so I thought that was really interesting kind of watching that. There was, you know, basketball and football as well, but I would say less so. A lot of Eagles stuff, obviously, a lot of Jalen Hurts signed Eagles helmets and jerseys. I would say very, very little on the non-sports culture cards side. But one thing I found out actually from Steve is they actually have a separate show for non-sports culture cards. It's going to happen in May. So I might actually go out there for that, just depending, just to see how big it is, what sorts of things are there. Because that is kind of an untapped, I don't want to call it like untapped market, but it just doesn't have the same sort of popularity as of yet to what sports brings. And it might not ever, but just some really cool style cards for collectors. There's a lot of really niche things, whether it's, you know, music cards, different bands, and there's all sorts of kind of vintage stickers and all. There's a lot, a lot of trading cards on the culture card side. And so that can be kind of its own rabbit hole deep dive in itself, just to look at something different than the usual sports card stuff. So I highly recommend getting out to a Philly show. It was really, really good. Very, very busy too. And I said it in my previous video, just surprised at how busy it really was. I mean, and again, it's just a great afternoon to go out, hang out with the family, go and just kind of, even if you're just window shopping, I did see people spending money. I did see people trading and transacting. So yes, there was window shopping, but there was also a lot of transactions as well. So it really was a great time, and on the same weekend as a huge Dallas show and a Nashville show. So as much as dealers have talked about spreading it thin among the different shows, as far as attendance goes, it didn't really make much of a difference. It was jamming. All right, guys, stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.